Welcome to Canadian Footy Fan Channel, content for fans, by fans. I am your host, Chris, and today I'm bringing you Canadian Footy Assembly, episode number 4, Be Proud Canada. But I'm not doing it alone. I'm joined by my excellent co-hosts once again, Robbie, Paul, and Juan, as well as a very special guest in Natasha. How are we all doing this evening?
We're doing good.
That's good. That's good.
Great.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
It's nice to have a female on the show. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's something we can I know we've had difficulties finding somebody interested, but hopefully we can have a regular co-host on who is female. But
spread the word.
Yeah, man. Everybody's Twitter links are in the description below, as well as Juan's Twitch link. So make sure you give everybody a follow or a subscribe. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and give your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below or in the live chat. But without further ado, let's kick this off. So our first topic of the day is the reason why we actually brought Natasha on, as Natasha traveled to Qatar to watch the World Cup. So we wanted to know about her experience of Qatar. I know today I saw a lot of positive reviews surrounding the World Cup, but I did notice a lot of those reviews were coming from white men. So I'm a little bit skeptical. But we wanted to learn a little bit more about her experience with regards to everything about the Qatar World Cup. So thank you for joining us, Natasha.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share some more stuff.
Okay, let's get you. There we go. There you go. You're the main one there. So Natasha, we have a couple of questions for you. Well, I do anyways. And then if anybody else has any other questions, I guess we can ask Natasha. So first of all, Natasha, what games did you attend? And what was the stadium and match day experience like?
Yeah, so I was only actually there I was in Doha for 6 days total. There's only so much money and so many vacation days, unfortunately. What I was there for was, I could barely pull off. But we saw Netherlands and Senegal. So that was like my first ever World Cup game, and my family's Dutch too. Normally I'd be cheering for them if Canada wasn't there. So that was a big one. Then we had 2 games in one day. We saw Croatia and Morocco. So we're scoping out the Group F competition in the morning. And then the big Canada versus Belgium that Wednesday night. And then the next morning we had Switzerland and Cameroon. So just 4 games total. I know one of the big things about this World Cup, it's like, oh, you can go to like all the different games. You can go to 2 games in a day. And like, it was awesome to be able to fit so much into a week, but with like the travel and heat and walking, like it was a lot. Like, I know some people who had more tickets and they were just trying to sell them because they're like, I just need a night off from this.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How was the transportation? Did you have to walk far or?
My feet are still sore. It was the transportation for the most part was pretty good. Like Qatar really pushed their fancy new metro for fans to get around, and like it was very nice. We only took it a few times though, because we were staying like right near Souk Waqif, like really central. It was actually easiest for us to take the stadium express shuttles. Like it was honestly easier than the metro. It was right there. It was pretty fast, and they were actually pretty quiet because I think a lot of people didn't notice them, or they were just like, "Oh, buses are bad. Why would I take a bus?" So for the most part, it was pretty easy to get around. The roads were very modern. I think they had a lot of stuff in place, like, limiting who could drive each day to prevent traffic from getting too bad. The one fun thing with the shuttles was mainly the first day we had issues was we had 2 instances where the drivers got lost. So
Yeah,
the first one, it was like the driver got to the right spot, but they wouldn't let her turn in to where the drop off was.
Oh, okay.
Like on one hand, they did a good job with like road closures and stuff, and that's just how security for this stuff works is like you have your big perimeter, but it's like it was so secure the bus drivers couldn't get the fans to where they needed to go. So eventually, people just demanded to be let off the bus. I think we actually ended up being closer to where we would have instead of the proper drop off point. So I'll just kind of laugh that off. It was fine. The way home was pretty bad because we spent it was an hour trip. We spent like an extra hour on that bus. until
Oh,
again
wow.
we finally said, please just let us off and we'll get home by ourselves. And it was like one way I came to describe so many things in Qatar was it was just like consistently inconsistent. Like we never had anything disastrous happen, at least not personally, but it was also just like I think their inexperience at hosting events and like the inexperience of the staff definitely showed. It's like you can't get too mad at them as individuals because they're trying their best. I think it's a bit of a cultural thing over there to not like admit that something's wrong. Like we're driving around circles in Doha and bus driver never says a thing. Like that wouldn't happen here. There would be communication. But it's just like, they're just getting crappy training. They're probably from another country, just working for terrible wages, trying to support their family. So it's like, you just got to go with the flow and accept the chaos.
So Natasha, it sounds wild. 4 games is amazing. But so is it very much like a World Cup village? Is that what it is? Like, did you get to experience Qatar, or were you like, was it World Cup Qatar?
I would definitely say experience World Cup Qatar, especially where I was staying. I was staying on one of the cruise ships.
Mm-hmm.
So right in like central Doha. Part of the reason I chose that was because I stayed on my own, but my dad and my stepmom were there. So they had booked a hotel in Souq Waqif. Like if you saw where the TSN booth was, where they were doing the broadcast there, they were like 2 blocks away. So I partially chose that to be close to them. Also just like I didn't want to be in some like apartment in the suburbs with no security or anything. So that was part of the reason I chose the cruise ship. I just felt a little bit safer staying there. But yeah, definitely experienced the World Cup. Really, like my aunt was asking me the other day, she's like, oh, like what were the locals like? I'm like, you didn't really meet many. So yeah, one way I've come to describe it was just kind of like a summer camp for soccer fans. It's like you're just instant best friends with everyone's just there to watch the games, and you're like in line for a bus and someone's sharing the score from another game. So it was a really nice atmosphere in terms of that sense, but I really don't think it was the true Qatar experience.
I'll be honest, Natasha, I think you made the right choice there, because I saw those pictures of the camp, like the camps, like staying on the cruise ship was definitely the better choice, because I don't think people were expecting what they got. And they made the most of it, I guess. But
and again, I think it's great to hold the World Cup in different countries and help grow the sport. Like I think we call it the world sport for marketing purposes, but we host it just in like Europe all the time. But I think it's just like we could never hold such a big tournament in a place that just has no infrastructure experience for hosting those kind of events. You got to start with other stuff first.
Yeah, it may have been a smarter idea to spread it across some of the other Arabian countries as well, like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. That may have been an idea, so that it wasn't all focused in one area where everybody is in that one area.
Yeah,
and Qatar isn't a very big country at all. It's minute.
Yeah, it was interesting because that's the only World Cup I've experienced. So I don't know what it's like when the next group stage game is like hours flight away. But it was definitely cool having it so close. And I think some people are concerned like, oh, what's it going to be like having all the fans from different countries stay in the same city? But it's like, I'm sure there were scuffles or whatever, but I saw absolutely no tensions or anything. It was just like everybody's there just to have a good time, at most some friendly banter.
Is it just like peace and love in the stands? Is everyone just like, oh, I love your country and I'll trade this scarf with you? Or did it get a little, it's like, I would say, did Canada, Belgium, or even like Switzerland, Cameroon? Did you notice anything?
I feel like being Canadian probably gave me a bit of like a skewed experience there, just because like everybody loves Canada. And I feel like it was such a good reminder too, just like of how the world looks on Canada. Because I got there Sunday. A lot of Canadian fans didn't get there till Tuesday or Wednesday morning, just because our group stage game was later. So like walking around, it's just like, oh my God, we're all the Canadians. So you really felt like the token Canadian. People are just like, oh my God, Canada. So I think part of that was just being Canadian and everyone loves you. But I do think for the most part, people were pretty friendly. And I'm sure there were incidents, but it definitely wasn't like widespread or like anger in the stands or anything. Before Canada's game, I was in the hospitality lounge. It was mostly Canadians, but there were a few Belgians in there, and it's like everyone's just having a good time.
That's
so
good.
I wanted to ask a soccer question. You were at the Belgium game, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so how many penalty shots was Canada supposed to get? Because the video feed was fuzzy in VAR, and I couldn't see that well either. So I'm just wondering what you saw live.
It was honestly really hard to tell because I think everything that happened in the first half was at the other end of the field. And I was basically like across the field from Canada's bench, about 10 rows up. So not the really amazing atmosphere, not the best for getting the vantage point of stuff at the other end of the field. I would say for sure too. We should have had 2 penalties.
I agree with that too.
Is it fair to say that the fan experience at a World Cup game, you sort of care less about the outcome, which you obviously still do, but you care less just because it's such like a joyous and like a festive experience? Or
I don't know about that Belgium game.
Or did you leave with like a sort of like a sad heart as a voyageur in a way?
I think both. Like I feel like that was like the most emotionally intense game, and not just because of the potential penalties and everything that happened in the game. Like it almost felt like a breakup or something the next day. It was just like such a high, but then such a low. Like I may or may not have thrown a flag to the ground after the game.
Well, isn't that beautiful though? Because I think everyone in Canada felt that way too, right? We had such high hopes, and there was so much promise, and it's like, oh, they don't love us.
Exactly. It's like the heartbreak was devastating, but like it was worth it for all the joy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you get up for the next game. Well, you would have been traveling back by that point. So you were
I
back
was back for Canada and Croatia.
Yeah, you're back for Canada and Croatia.
Yeah.
So yeah, you went. And like I said, the reason why our performance dropped off in the Croatia game is because you came back. You should have stayed there.
Was that you, Natasha?
Yeah, that was all Natasha's fault.
Oh man,
yeah, no.
We're gonna lose viewers.
Not that right.
So Natasha, like besides like the World Cup experience, did you do like any other like sightseeing in Qatar away from where the World Cup was? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, unfortunately, we really didn't get to do much else. Okay. We did kind of think about it. It was funny because like they pitched a lot of stuff like, oh, there's going to be so many things to do, but it's like half of it is just concerts, and I'm really not into that stuff. Yeah. Especially with some of the issues they were having at the fan festival with like crowding and stuff at nighttime. Like during the day, it was totally fine, but we didn't go there at night. And there were some things like, I know people talk about the Pearl and stuff. We looked at going to this like cultural village thing up in West Bay, but it was just like a lot of it's just walking around, like looking at stuff and going shopping. I'm like, I've already done enough walking and shopping this week. I don't have money to go shopping. So we ultimately just kind of stuck more in like the Suqua Keefe area. I wanted to go to one of the museums. Unfortunately, again, just didn't quite make it out.
Okay.
But, we really stuck to the World Cup stuff.
And as a woman, how did you feel while you were there? Like, I know I personally had the opportunity to go to Qatar through a connection in the United Arab Emirates, but I myself felt uncomfortable, and I'm a white male. How did you feel? And while you were there, did you feel comfortable?
Honestly, I felt totally fine. I think it kind of goes back to like a question earlier. Like I really did not experience Qatar. I experienced the World Cup that happened to be in Qatar. But I totally felt fine. I mean, I did take a few things. Like I said, I stayed on the cruise ship. I didn't want to stay in some suburb with no security or anything. So that was part of it. I mean, I was staying in my own accommodations alone, but really like I didn't spend much time alone. I would just meet up with my dad and my stepmom. So it's not like I was really spending much time alone there. Definitely never had any incidents.
That's good.
You definitely, and I remember in the opening game, people were kind of, making comments about, oh, Qatar, like, where's your woman in the crowd? It's like, yes, but you can kind of say that about any country. Let's be real.
It's true. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So fair criticism, but it's like, it's not just them. Let's be real. I felt totally fine. I mean, the only thing I really noticed is like, you definitely noticed there were more men around, and there were kind of like 2 different bus hubs in Suqua Keefe. So when I got off the shuttle from the cruise ship, it was a little bit further away from the water, and I'd always kind of walk down like a very local street. And I always noticed then just like the locals hang around, not a woman in sight. So it's like you noticed it, but I never felt unsafe or anything.
Okay, that's good.
There's always just so many people around, and no one ever talked to you or anything. So like it was fine. I feel like I just being like a woman in the soccer space and everything too. I think I'm kind of used to being in very male dominated environments, so it doesn't necessarily phase me like it might phase some other people. I know at security they'd often, almost always send you to a line with like a woman security person.
That's good.
Which I mean, I guess they do that here sometimes too. And I definitely noticed one time like sitting down for dinner in Souk Waqif, and it definitely felt like the waiter was mainly addressing my dad and not me or my stepmom. And like it didn't feel like anything that was like, particularly against us or whatever. It's just kind of how they do it there, for better or for worse. But yeah, definitely never felt unsafe or like discriminated against or anything. But I think the main thing was just like, especially outside the World Cup area, is just like, where are the women?
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Does anybody else have any final questions for Natasha before I ask her the last one?
Yeah, Natasha, I'm just curious on the stadium experience. Like, I saw some videos on Twitter where there were some people who were having difficulty getting to the stadiums due to like a nap crash, or there was like some sort of miscommunication. Was your experience like similar to that, or were you able to go in no problem?
Yeah, thankfully we didn't have any issues, because I think the day it crashed we were at Netherlands and Senegal. And we were there early enough that we didn't see any like lineups or anything really, but I do know what was happening. I think there was an England game that night. I don't remember. I think there was one where it was like really, people were really impacted, and kind of, because we had a bunch of like Facebook groups and WhatsApp group with people there, and I'd heard some rumblings early in the day where people are just like, is anybody else's tickets just gone from the app? And we're like, no, like what's going on? So thankfully not personally impacted. Overall, just like getting into stadiums and stuff was really fine. We were always really on top of getting there super early. Like they opened up the, security like 3 hours early. And I think the latest we ever got there was like an hour early. So I think, there were definitely times where it was a bit of a challenge, but personally, no. And again, we were just super on top of being there early and giving ourselves lots of time. So it was fine. The biggest issue we'd had was they kept taking our sunscreen away from us going into stadiums at the fan festival.
That's tough.
Interesting. So I guess go ahead.
I have one question actually. And I'll make it quick. In 10 words or less, Natasha, because we felt it here at home. What did it feel like to be in the stadium when they sang "Oh Canada" at the Belgium game? In 10 words or less, describe it.
Very loud, very surreal, and very proud.
You did it. That's good. Thank you.
Be proud, Canada. The theme of this episode. So final question, Natasha, is what was your favorite moment while you were in Qatar?
I don't know if I could choose just one moment. I think the highlight was just like the build up to the few hours before the Canada game, and probably just like the anthem. So we were lucky we had hospitality tickets for that game, so you get like the lounge to go in, and it was just filled with Canadians. And I think like you got to like select your country, but I don't think it was deliberate, because like there were some Belgian fans in there. I mean, I was like, I'm from Hamilton, so just randomly found out 2 other Hamilton people in line. I'm like, hey, Forge jersey, and just everyone's
I saw those online.
Yeah, everyone's just in such a good mood. And of course, you paid that much money for the tickets. So we're like, we are eating everything and getting our money's worth. And we had alcohol there. So it's like, give us all the beer. We're enjoying this. But yeah, just such like joy and excitement. It was just, again, just so many people there. Like we walked through security and there were just Canadians everywhere.
Really?
I'm sure a small part of that was just Canadians tend to get to things very early. But
maybe.
Like I was like, okay, maybe we'll have like a section or 2 of Canadians, but there were just so many. I remember just, we finished up our food, just walking into the stadium for the first time and just walking out and seeing it. And again, just seeing how many Canadians were there. And, they got quite the welcome when they came onto the field. And they kind of came over and, waved to people and stuff too, which was nice. And we gave Belgium a good hearty boo when they came onto the field.
I remember you were tweeting that. Yeah.
Like, wow,
Very
we got
Canadian.
some confidence now, guys. But yeah, just that build up. I think there was just so much like excitement and amazement and gratitude at being there. And then we all just like, sacrificed our voices for that anthem. And yeah, it was something special.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience of the Qatar World Cup, Natasha. We really do appreciate it. That's what this channel is for, is people sharing their thoughts, opinions, and experiences from coast to coast. So I really do appreciate that. But we'll switch up to our next topic. So our next topic is something that came up after we actually did the rundown, because we had a lot of transfer news the last couple of days, is Alistair Johnston moving to Celtic for about $4 million, as well as Ishmael Kone moving to Watford for $8 to $10 million. So that's CF Montreal losing two of their key players from last season as well. So as a TFC fan, I'm happy. As a Canadian men's national team, I'm happy that some of our players are going to Europe to play in more competitive environments. Right. So Robbie, I'll come to you first, and we'll do the Ishmael Kone one that happened today. What was your reaction to this transfer?
I was proud of the guy. I feel like it's nice to see Canadian talent getting recognized. And the truth is, the honeymoon's over. We didn't perform that well at the World Cup. And a player like Kone is part of the future of the program. So seeing him go to a team like that is not just great for him as an individual, as a new experience and a place to grow, but it will benefit the national program, because I think there's a gap that we need to close. Right. And part of that is using these leagues around the world, which we traditionally only had, but using them to sort of groom our top flight talent, because I don't think we can do it as of yet, just inside the North American leagues.
Yeah, I did read an article today saying that the end goal is for him to move to Udinese in Serie A, because the owners of Watford also own Udinese. So they were saying perhaps maybe this is only for a very short term before moving on again to another level. And I wouldn't have any doubts that Ishmael Kone can do that. Look, he went from semi-professional soccer a year ago to playing at the World Cup. That was quite unexpected, especially coming from me, who doubted his current ability at the beginning of the year. But I did rate his potential, but I didn't see this coming from him this year. He had an excellent season in MLS, and to be honest, he looked very comfortable for Canada, even in the World Cup, I found. I'll come to Paul. Paul, what was your reaction to the Alistair Johnston transfer?
I was actually very happy for him. He seems like a level-headed young lad. And I say young lad just because he is young. But yeah, it to see his ascension as well, playing League One to where he is now. And I think in 2 to 3 years? 3 years?
3 years, yeah. 3 years ago,
3 years, he's made that ascension. It's
playing
wild.
Midfield in League One.
Yeah, it's wild that he's actually converted to right back, sometimes he played CD, and has been able to develop at such a pace. And you could see the confidence and the willingness to learn. And I think that's what has helped to propel him to where he is now. We kind of heard rumors before, that, after playing Nashville and moving to CF Montreal, that there was a possibility that, especially how we play for the national team in CONCACAF, I had a feeling that I'm not actually surprised. I think I'm surprised that he went to Scotland. And I know I saw a lot of people bashing on Twitter, or why is he going to Celtic? But I think people need to realize, like, a lot of players that we see high profile now, they started somewhere else, right? And I think sometimes we have a skewed, especially here in Canada, we expect our players to just go to, the top team, like APL right away. And a lot of players have not. They've started in lower leagues and have been able to showcase themselves, then move. So, and Celtic, they play championship league football. So, I mean, there's an opportunity for him, and they're a top team as well, right? So they in Scotland, so they carry themselves well. So he'll have a good foundation. There'll be, proper training and things to help to develop him along the way. And as Robbie alluded to with Kone, is getting more players to kind of close that gap, right? We want players playing. So whether no matter, for me right now, no matter where it is, as long as they start in Europe, and I know some people might debate that, but for me, I think there's more eyes on Europe.
Yeah.
And so when
100%.
you're playing in Europe, there's more eyes for you to actually jump to the next level. So for me, if a player has the opportunity, take advantage of it. So I'm really happy for him, and I think he could do big things at Celtic. I don't know if he's going to start. That's my only.
Yeah, they got
question.
Juranovic there, but he seems like he's on the way out.
I think he is on the way. That's the word.
That's the word in January. So if he does, then it's a good opportunity. I wouldn't want him to, but he seems like a person that will have the drive. That would not to say that Larea didn't, but I wouldn't want it to be a Larea situation where he's,
They're kind of the same. They're actually all kind of the same player, don't you think? Well, in one respect. They all kind of, if you look at their story, and I think it makes a difference. There's a ton of skill, and Juan probably knows this as a coach himself. There's a lot of kids with skill, but what makes a difference is that mental fortitude.
Right.
And if you look at Kone's story, you look at Alphonso Davies' story, even Alistair Johnston, his mental fortitude. I mean, if you've ever heard him speak, and even like they're all intelligent humans. But I think whatever happened in their lives, however they gain their strength, that is what's helping them propel. Because there's skill all over the place. It's about application and understanding systems and when to make decisions and how quickly. And these guys picked it up quick. I think that's why they rose so quickly, because they had all the tools and they just needed the right, sort of puppeteer.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Awesome.
I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Juan. You do a lot of youth coaching. I'm sure you see stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because these guys are we did have previous Canadian internationals play in Europe, but this time around it seems like it's guaranteed starting 11s, right? Like these guys are pushing for the 11s, and they're becoming like the pioneers of the group, right? They're not the youngest guys, right? Except for Kone, but they're trying to create a pathway for other Canadians to come through. And you've seen it before with Laren, Stachio, right? Sometimes those moves work and sometimes they don't, right? It really depends on which situation you go into. That's why a lot of times at times it won't look perfect, but again, they're still young, right? They're young men. They're between 22 to 25, and all those transfers are going to be lessons to them. So you definitely, when you travel to Europe as well, it's not like we're having a flourish of domestic. Sorry, my dog,
okay.
My dog's being pretty mad at me for not playing with him right now.
It sounds like he has something to say about Kone.
Yeah, he's got his goomies right now. So I'll just finish my thought and then just pay attention for a bit. But it's great that these guys are getting a lot of moves now, and they're getting those opportunities. So I'm so happy for them.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add regarding the transfers? But it does seem to me like combined Montreal and TFC right now, they may struggle to form an 11 because TFC, the numbers are low, and Montreal, they seem to be losing a lot of players, with Waterman now being also rumored to be leaving. Kamal Miller's rumored to be leaving as well. They lost Karifa Yao to Vancouver. So it'll be interesting to see what Montreal and TFC have this offseason. Both of them need a fair number of players to come in. But that's a podcast for a different day. I guess we'll move on to our next topic. So our next topic is Canada's World Cup performance. So I'll come to you first, Paul. We'll start with the most recent game, with the game versus Morocco. If you want to give us a little bit of a breakdown and your reaction to that game that ended in a 2-1 loss to Canada.
I'm just going to say, remember, guys, I told you Morocco is my dark horse. I think a lot of people at the beginning of when the draw was held, automatically was like, oh, yeah, Morocco, you know what? Belgium, yeah, we're probably rough. Maybe we need to get some point from Belgium. Croatia, we won't get any. But Morocco's the one that we have to get. And I think as the tournament started, people were like, oh, number one, they had a different system, sacked their coach just before. Ziyech coming back in, and I forgot, and I forgot somebody else who was on the outside that came back. But primarily remember Ziyech wasn't playing because of their former coach.
Yeah.
So you had a rejuvenated and motivated team to play. And I think even with that, I knew it was going to be tough. Outside of whatever tactics Canada brought, I knew that it would actually be tough for Canada to actually come back even from the previous game, playing Croatia and having that letdown. We spoke about it on our previous episode, so anyone you could go back and check. We talked about playing 3 in the midfield. I know that was something that we left, and we didn't do that.
No.
We ended up playing 2 in the midfield again.
Against 3.
Mm-hmm. And I think we kind of underestimated it. And I understand. I understand what Herdman. I don't know if he's, and I know people might not like it, but I think he's playing the long game. So I think, in a sense, to be honest with you, the way I looked at it was he was trying to instill something into the team to be entertaining and to be able to play free, and not necessarily play to the opponent, which is probably not the best thing when you're in this tournament, right? So, as you saw, we got in the first half. I felt like we were going to lose maybe 3 or 4-0. Just like it didn't look good because once again we got exposed in the middle. We also saw another tactic. We also saw Davies and Tejan playing opposites and inverting that. Once again, trying different things.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work. I like Adekugbe coming back in, but I don't know if it was the best of having Davies play on the right and Buchanan play on the left. I mean, I understand maybe. I think with Herdman, a lot of times when you're very intelligent, sometimes you overthink things. And I think in this game, he should have just stuck to when he knew he made the mistake with Croatia, hey, let's go to the thread midfield. Because if you saw in the second half, when we adjusted, we looked comfortable and we looked like a team that was, looking to score. And we got, in the second half? Yeah, second half, we got the goal. Whether it's our own goal, it was a pressure. Like we started pressuring them, and you could see that Morocco was absorbing the pressure. Another aspect is the goal. The first goal. Was it the first goal or the second? Sorry,
the first. Yeah,
it was the first one.
We made the Boran, yeah.
The Boyan.
First goal.
Yeah.
So 2 things, and I was actually going to tweet it out today. If you look at the England game with Pickford, you notice how I actually tweeted out that modern goalkeepers play. So number one, Boyan plays too far back in.
Yeah.
And that's like a very old style.
Yes.
You notice a lot of goalies that are successful, they usually play out a bit. So you want to play as much 25. I've actually got trained by a national goalkeeper in the Caribbean when I lived there for a few years. You also want to make sure that you're staying out. You always don't. Yes, sometimes a ball could, but you want to make sure that you're always keeping an eye on, and that was the downfall for several. So number one, when Victoria, obviously too soft of a pass. I don't know what he was passing. Okay, so your defender makes a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But making a double mistake on that was just like, what am I seeing here? And Boyan, I've said it from the jump, he is not good on the ball. In this game, you need a keeper that could be a sweeper.
Mm-hmm.
You need a keeper that could be able to play out from the back, and to me, that was, as much as we say the brotherhood, I'll be honest with you. I like you guys, but if we're playing and one of you made that mistake, I'll be dejected. And I think that happened. Yeah. If you notice, you could tell as much as, yes, you get back up and, the brotherhood and, you care, you're also human. So when you see Boyan making that mistake, it's like, oh my gosh, we're already getting pressure. Now you're putting us now in a precarious situation where now we're down when we didn't have to be down. I just don't understand this on a whole. This World Cup, Boyan has been horrible. He was great through CONCACAF. I don't know, was the pressure. I don't know if he felt that he needed to, maybe he had more expectations on himself and trying to overcompensate and do well, because that sometimes could happen. But to be honest with you, he did not, I'll be honest with you, throughout all the games. And I'm not trying to blame him. I'm not saying that's why we lost. The last game. But I'm not saying throughout the tournament. But there's little cues that he could have done better. But that goal was way too easy. Yeah. And it exposed us for what we've always said. Number one, it exposed our back line, which we always spoke about in CONCACAF, and they did a good job in CONCACAF. But if we actually look at CONCACAF, we don't have strikers. When you come to, we don't in the region, we don't have clinical finishers.
Except Antonio, but then Jamaica is a whole...
they're I don't even know about that federation.
Canada will have to find a way to create friendlies with some higher, ranked opponents. Also, Scott Kennedy would have helped a lot.
Oh, absolutely. There was a Josh spoke about it today. I'll be honest with you. Now the only issue is Herdman is very loyal. So I'm not sure if Herdman would have started Kennedy at any point in time.
I don't think so.
But I think what it does now, it actually, unfortunately, the sacrificial lamb, it now shows where we would have, because when Kennedy played, like his speed and pace, so maybe he needs to replace Victoria, as we could tell Victoria cannot.
He is 35, turning 36 in January, so I don't imagine he's long for the Canadian men's national team program. I would expect maybe after this current Nations League / Gold Cup in the coming year, once that is done, we're going to see a few players retire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Atiba most likely will retire. I assume he's 39. Like I can't imagine him going for much longer.
Did you catch his quote? Did you catch Atiba's quote after the game?
No. What did he say?
Here, actually, I
didn't see
it up. This is what he said. He says, after the Morocco game, I don't know. I really need to just put my head down and really think things through. I'm very close to retirement, he's referring to, but haven't made my decision as of yet. So it's on his mind, and he was teary-eyed. So I mean, he kind of looked a bit like how many games can you get out of him anyway? Right?
He may just flat out just retire, because even with his club, like he just returned from injury, and it doesn't seem like he's first choice anymore either. So he may just flat out retire, period. I don't see Vittoria doing that. He'll at least play out the rest of the season with his club team.
Right.
And Boyan, by the sounds of it, he doesn't have any plans to retire. Neither do I blame him. He's 34 and he's a keeper. He can still play for a number of years. But with regards to Boyan, we definitely need to give Maxime, as I said in my 5-point review, we need to give Dane St. Clair and Maxime Crepeau opportunities going forward. It doesn't need to be solely Boyan. We're lucky enough to have 3 goalkeepers that I think we can all trust to a certain degree. Even after Boyan's World Cup, I would still trust him to play, especially in CONCACAF, where we know what we're going to face. But yeah, I'm not too worried in that department. But in the center back department, I am very concerned. As I also said in the 5-point review, I'm very concerned about center backs. Right now, I think we can only maybe trust 3 or 4 center backs. And then after that, it's like Joel Waterman we're going to have to throw in. He needs to get some game time because he's one of our only choices right-footed besides Vittoria. And then Daniel Henry, I don't even know what the future holds for him. I don't know where he's going to be playing next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing in the Canadian Premier League next season after the rough season that he had.
I can picture these guys having a little bit of difficulty mentally giving things up, because a lot of these guys been through it all, right? Mm-hmm. They've been through a national team that's been not the greatest at its points, right? A lot of those guys were there when we lost the Honduras 8-1. So once we reach to that moment in time where we're reaching our peak, and it's the first time going to a World Cup, it's the first time even being successful, I can see how difficult it is saying, like, I don't want to give up my boots up yet. Right? I know I can still contribute a bit. And I think it's going to be difficult for Herdman to start trying to get those guys mentally become mentors, because you see even like Henry, he did a fantastic job, right? Mm-hmm. You notice that once that injury happens, there's no longer he can play. So he decided to go into like a coaching / mentor role for that situation. Again, because he knew it was a physical injury, right? It's something that he can see. But when it comes to regression in terms of careers, you always have in the back of your mind, you're like, yes, I'm getting old, but I know I can do something. And right now, we do have a lot of young people coming through, but it's much more difficult.
Center back's going to be the position they'll have to develop in the next 4 years. Like, they will have to seek out players, and
Karifa Yao needs to get game time with Vancouver.
Yeah. There's there was a mention of Justin. There's a Justin Smith.
I believe.
But I think he plays more of a CDM, and we need somebody there as well too, because now we have Atiba, we have Piet, and Piet, I think we know what his level is. He's effective in CONCACAF, but anything beyond that, I think, is a little bit too much of an ask for him. Liam Fraser, he's 25 and playing in the Belgium second division. It's not the greatest level. We really need somebody to develop in that position as well. I think Justin Smith, because he can play center back and defensive midfield, he's somebody who needs to get the Koleosho treatment. And even if he's not coming into play, just come in and attend the camp to learn, like Koleosho did. I think it would be important, because he's somebody that I think we need desperately to develop.
Well, I think all the Canada games post World Cup are going to look a lot different. I don't think Herdeman's going to ride his veterans. It's not going to be so much about winning as it is about developing and integrating, because
I think he made the right choice choosing loyalty for the World Cup and the
100%.
veterans, but moving forward, that's got to change and look to the future.
Because it would have been difficult just to throw in, like, let's just say Vittoria wasn't playing well. Is he just going to throw in Joel Waterman, who has, he's played once for Canada, if that?
Yeah, literally.
Are there some veterans, Natasha, that you think Canada can sort of still hang their cap on, or maybe some others that we should move on from? Like when you made that comment, like what were you thinking?
I think it more comes to mind for players like, Vittoria and Fraser and Piet. It's like, they're still playing at a decent level, but, they're not going to be there in 2026.
No.
So it's just finding that balance between keeping them around for, the mentorship and development, but we just got to prioritize getting the younger guys on the field and learning.
Yeah, we looked slow in some of our games, right? Because we had no depth, no experience depth to bring on. Because we ran with those veterans for so long, all the way up to the World Cup.
Yeah.
And our depth, and I've also tweeted this out to say, we have attacking players. Like, we're lopsided on attacking players. We don't have depth in midfield and the center back position.
No.
And that's where downfall. As soon as Eustachio got injured, you could tell that.
We were in trouble.
Yeah,
and Atiba's he's 39, recovering from an injury, asking him to play twice in 3-4 days. It was just too much of an ask for him.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate that he is the age he is. Even if he was 32, 7 years younger, I think he would have been a lot more effective. But with regards to that second game in Croatia, it was just too much to ask for. He looked good in the Morocco game when he came on, I thought.
Yes.
But he knew he only had so much to go, right? He knew how to pace himself for those remaining minutes compared to, I'll be honest, and we'll go to this game next with Juan, but with regards to the Croatia game, I think he was meant to come off at halftime, but when Eustachio got injured,
he couldn't.
He had to keep going, because who else are we going to bring on at that point, right? We already brought on Osorio and Kone, who were the only other midfielders I personally trusted going into this World Cup. And then we're going to throw in Kay, and we all know Kay struggles this year, or Piet. And we all know Piet struggles in the pre-World Cup friendlies, where it just doesn't seem like he's at that level. But Juan, do you want to give us your breakdown in reaction to the Croatia game?
Yeah, I'll add something after Juan makes his breakdown in regards to that comment that you made, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, so, it's common knowledge now, Canada unfortunately didn't qualify through the second game. There was a lot of controversy pre-match with Herman's comments and the connection of our Serbian goalkeeper, Milian Borjan, and the Croatian fan. So this game had a lot of spice to it. Mm-hmm. Canada started off great, right? At the first minute, Tejan had the ball on the right wing. He crossed it to Davies, which was a fantastic situation, because there was so much talk about him missing the penalty and him not contributing to the team, which is like such a ridiculous thing to say. for him to score for Canada at that moment in time, like, I don't know about you guys, but like I was screaming for like 4 minutes stop, because at that moment in time, it seemed like we had everything under control, right? And unfortunately, Canada couldn't hold on to that lead long enough, right? We got picked apart. We were trying to man mark, but with Croatia's experience, they knew where to make their runs, right? So Croatia equalized in the 36th minute with Kramaric with a fantastic finish. Again, a lot of those guys aren't as athletic as us, but they are very experienced. They're very composed on the ball. They knew what they were doing with us. And yeah, the final score was 4-1, right? Honestly, due to the tactics and the mistakes we had, it didn't really feel like a 4-1. It was degrading, but we played a pretty good game. But yeah, I think it really started an open conversation about John Herdman. I think it's something we'll get on later on. Talk about later.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting on how we played. So I'm just curious how you guys felt about the match.
Yeah. So I was gonna add.
Go, Paul.
Sorry, I was gonna add. Sorry if you don't mind, Chris. I was gonna add when Chris spoke about bringing on extra midfield. So it's interesting because the conversation started getting heated, and I think it became, when I say heated, in a sense on Twitter, where it was like now, yes, CF Montreal fans, and reporters talking about, because it's funny, I was even back and forth with Patrice Bernier in regards to bringing on Piet, and I was just like, I think sometimes I get it. Logically speaking, it would make sense to bring on Piet. From a logic, when I say logically speaking, I'm saying from the hierarchy standpoint, he's been with us for a long time. Yes, this year he's actually improved on his forward movement. So his passing has gotten better. It's not to where it needs to, but it's gotten better. So I get it. But I think what Herdman did, and take out the World Cup, prior to the World Cup, the friendlies, if we really looked how Piet played when he played against Uruguay, or even when he played against Bahrain, he did not look good. Like when he got the ball, and anytime somebody came close to him, he lost the ball. And I understand he's a defensive person, so yes, you want that. But you also want someone to be able to progress the ball as well, or be comfortable on the ball. Because at the end of the day, even if I could defend, if I can't pass forward the ball, then to be honest with you, I'm useless. Because if I lose the ball, we've seen now in the World Cup the level that we're at now, where if you lose the ball, you're not getting it back. Like the speed, a lot of times people say Canada has speed. We've seen speed at this World Cup. Canada's not the only team that has pace. So we have to understand that. So a lot of people, like, it was getting ridiculous, where a lot of people like, oh, why is the Atiba still on? Honestly, yes, I didn't want him on either. But the reality is you needed someone of veteran leadership who would be able to, at least, as much as he was still getting beat, still be comfortable enough to go out there and play. Bringing on Piet or somebody with like Liam Fraser. Guys, let's be honest. Like, I think sometimes we have to be honest, and we could have difference of opinions, but I'll be honest, I wouldn't have been comfortable bringing on Liam Fraser or even Piet as much as, just bring it on. They're a player.
Yeah, but it's not because of pace, though, right? Like, we didn't have pace. Sorry to interrupt you, Paul, but we don't have pace. Okay. It's because of the quickness of decision making.
Yeah,
right. That's the difference between the Canadian players and the other teams. They're used to it because of the leagues that they typically play in, right? And you hear it all the time. The difference between, let's say, because we're Canadian, let's say MLS, and even the English Championship, it's decision making. It's that speed. That's the difference. Because all the skill is there, and that Canada just moved the ball slow, made poor decisions, waited too long, held onto the ball too long, and it's just about learning how to play at that level. And when your only guy in a top 5 is Alphonso Davies, you're going to run into that, right?
What's even interesting too is a lot of the times we're exposed off transition, right? It's whenever we lose the ball in the final third or when we're trying to build up. And a lot of times, like coaches, they have to try to present that situation during practices saying, okay, we lose the ball here. This is what we're going to do, right? And a lot of times it seems like like what Robbie said, it's that inexperience in those moments in time that we've lost control of that moment, and then it becomes our defenders being outnumbered by their forwards, and then they have a shot on target. So it seems like we'll have the ball most of the time, everything will work out well, but once that plan's out of the window, we lose track. And we are physically a much more better team, but like what Robbie said, we have to react much more quicker in those situations.
And Juan, you said something that hit the nail on the head, and I don't think people understood that is, as you could have all the tactics. So I think outside of the three midfields, a lot of people are like, oh, they're just scrambling, because that inexperience and decision making. A lot of times when you start to get frantic, because there were certain points at that Croatia game where I felt like they were like, you know what, I just need to take it on myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Davies and Buchanan especially.
Yeah, because that inexperience starts to kick in where you no longer trust, because you're like, oh, we're down. Instead of, you see Croatia, you could actually see it. The first goal, they're like,
They still played.
And they still played. But the issue is, I think part of it is, I don't think they expected us to come in the 4-4-2. So I think that caught them off guard in the first 10, maybe 10, 15 minutes. But notice when they scored, they were still comfortable. For us, soon they scored, you could tell the and that's what it boiled down to. So a lot of times people were on Twitter, oh, Herdman, he needs to. Part of it, yes, is his tactics, but part of it is learning the experience that when you're down or when things are not going the way, you still have to be able to trust. And if anything, then you make sure at halftime, whatever, that you have the adjustment. But you need to trust your players. You trust your players around you. Because if not, then yeah, you run out of position. You start running after the ball. And there were certain times, I think I saw Tejan, he was playing the right, but then he ended up in the middle. Like it seemed like he was running after the ball. And that's something, Juan, as a coach, that's a no-no. Yeah, it's a no-no. So that's why we got picked apart. I think another reason why we got picked apart in that Croatia game.
Well, so this is one thing that stood out for me. I wouldn't mind just mentioning Jonathan Osorio for a second. I think Jonathan Osorio is like 5 years too old. Like if he was 5 years young, if he was 5 years younger, he probably would have gotten that break where he could be at like the level of some of the top midfielders at the World Cup. He has everything you want. He's just not had enough game time. He hasn't had enough minutes at that level. But I'm really curious. So I'm a TFC fan, obviously. But having said that, I mean, for the Canada program, if he gets the opportunity to play abroad, I think you could still see him on this roster, even though he's up there in years. I think he's someone who looks after himself physically. And I would love to see him performing at a higher clip. He doesn't have a shot yet. I'd love to see him still develop a shot. But as like a ball moving midfielder, someone who can close gaps in transition, because he's very intelligent that way, because that's what it's about. You've got to close down space quickly in transition. And he's good at that. But I'd love to see him after he's had a year or two doing that at a much higher level. That would be nice, but I still want him to stay at TFC, so I'm torn.
Yeah, he's not somebody who relies on his physical attributes. He never has. He's always relied on his intelligence and his movement off the ball and his decisive passing. Especially, like we say, he's a very tiki-taka player. He likes to pass and move the 5-yard passes. He's not like Kone, who likes to drop deep and start spreading the ball. That's not how he likes to play at all. He likes those interchange, especially with the left wing and the striker, and then moving and making the overlap or the underlap. I'll be very interested to see what he does. I can see him going somewhere in Belgium. I can see him maybe going somewhere in Portugal. I'll be very interested to see where he goes. He could maybe even stay at TFC. I personally have him in my forecast, the 2026 World Cup squad. I know there's been some ramblings about him being a potential captain for Canada with regards to replacing Atiba. I think that's something he would do. I think he'd be an excellent leader. It just comes down to, is Osorio going to be an everyday player for Canada? I think he should be, but that's because I think we should be playing in midfield 3. And I think that's something that John Herdman has to do. Look at doing going forward. It seems like it has been something he's been very hesitant to do. I'm not sure why. It was just so exposed in the Croatia game where Brozovic, Kovacic, and Modric, their fluidity between the three of them, where one of them would always drop deep and the other two would move more forward, it made it difficult for our midfielders of two to keep track of where they were. And their interplay is so amazing because all three of them are world-class midfielders. I think they just ran Eustachio and Atiba, like they just ran them into the ground in the first half with their ball movement and their physical movement as well between the three of them. In my opinion, we as soon as John Herdman saw this in the first half, he should have made a sub then. I think the goal was to have either Laren or David drop deep and to join them to be a third midfielder, but we didn't see that enough.
No, David got bullied. So if you notice, I don't know, if you go back and watch the game, he got bullied off the ball. Because, and as I said, people underestimate Kovacic. Like when he plays for Chelsea, like the way he drops and sometimes comes forward afterward, it's amazing to see on a weekly basis. So I'm not even surprised.
Yeah, his strength is driving forward on the ball.
Yes,
he does have his flaws, but where he would drop deep a lot in that game, I found, which was unusual. But the reason why he was doing that is because that's where he was able to find space, and then he was able to run forward with the ball because Eustachio and Atiba would be busy with Brozovic and Modric, and then he would just have space to run into.
Yeah. The other thing with Osorio, I actually agree. Like Osorio and Atiba, I kind of feel bad for them because they've been through a lot in the program. And if they were younger to actually be able to take advantage now. So we're looking at Osorio. He's 30 now, right? So he's probably going to be 34 by that
34 by the next World Cup.
Is he going to be starting? I'm so torn because it's like even the Morocco game as well. And I didn't talk about it, but you could just see his intelligence oozing as much as yes, he's not athletic. He's not outpacing anyone, but he's always, I feel like 95% of the time or 90% of the time, he's in the right position. And he almost scored in the Morocco game. Like that shot that he did.
In the beginning of the second half.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad shot either, but it was such a, he's always in the right place. And I think we need more players like him, to be honest with you, because maybe somebody else who had a better shot might have scored. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that he can't. I've seen him score goals like that for TFC. But I'm also torn too. On one hand, I really want him to get the opportunity to go to Europe, but also being a TFC fan, I would love him to stay. But I think he should get the opportunity to go to Europe as much as it'll hurt as a TFC fan, because I think his smarts will do so well in Europe.
I think what's interesting too is that we're all looking at 2026. That's the main goal, right? Where we have multiple tournaments to come through. So we're starting to question Osorio if he'll be able to start playing 2026. Well, we'll have the Gold Cup to answer that, right? See how he's performing there, if he's going to a new club or if he's staying at TFC. We also might have an invite at the Comni Bowl, right?
Yes, 2024,
2024, I would love, that would be.
There will be multiple opportunities, right? Yes, 4 years' time will be a very, very long time, especially in football, but we'll have a lot of tournaments to get those questions answered.
Yeah. I think let's move on. That sums up our review of the two games with Morocco and Croatia. Let's look at it a little bit more overall. I'll come to you first, Natasha. If you could give me one player that either really impressed you or really unimpressed you with regards to the Canadian men's national team at the World Cup.
Oh, tough question. I think impressed me would probably be Eustachio. He's just a baller. He's just so solid and just really rose to the occasion. And I think especially knowing that he was dealing with a bit of a nagging injury, it seemed like the fact that he was able to just fight through that and he showed up. And I know like at work and stuff, a lot of people don't follow the national team very closely. Like, wow, that guy is good. I'm like, yeah, we've been telling you all this time.
Yeah.
In terms of disappointments, I mean, I guess Borjan, although I almost don't want to put it on him too much. It's hard to put it all on the keeper because, the defense and stuff matters too. I think maybe Jonathan David as well. I think a big part of the reason he disappointed was he wasn't given the opportunities. He just wasn't given the service he needed to score and how he operates. But yeah, I think it was maybe not even so much disappointed in his performance for Canada, but just like I feel like he had so much to offer and be put on the world stage. I feel like that was just a huge missed opportunity for him, like as an individual, to show what he's made of.
Yeah, I had high expectations of Jonathan David going into the tournament. As a Manchester United fan, there were the rumors, and he did not have the World Cup I was expecting, to be honest. And like I said in my 5-point review, I'm not sure. Like, I know David has been playing as the lone number 9 for Lille this season, and he has been effective, but it is his first year doing so. And then for him to be essentially dropped for the last game, I understood why, but like Christian Jack pointed afterwards, like you're bringing in Kyle Larin, who has barely played this year, and he's so hot and cold, and when he's cold, he's really cold. So like, do you not want to just have your best players on the field if you don't have somebody else? It's not like Larin was firing in the Belgian league, right? If he was, then maybe it would make sense, but yeah, I was a bit disappointed. I think Gakpo has gone ahead of ahead of Jonathan David with regards to the move to Manchester United. But yeah, how about yourself, Paul? Anybody who impressed you or unimpressed you?
Yeah, I think Tajon impressed me in a sense where, a lot of times you see him. I saw him in the Belgian league, Bruges, playing in Championship League, and I thought, okay, yeah, can he take on that? Is he going to have that same mindset where he's taking on 1v1 players? And he didn't, to be honest, he didn't back down. And that impressed me. Does he still have a lot of room to improve? Absolutely. I think he still needs to improve on his 1v1. I think his decision-making and when to run and when not to, and when to pass and release. I think those are areas that he needs to improve, but I think he will. But that was for me where he didn't fear anyone, that he was willing to take on anyone and not back down. So that actually impressed me. And that cross, to be honest with you, that cross with the first goal, Croatia, I'll be honest, I didn't expect that from him. His crosses that I've seen, they've been okay, but he's always either the one getting the cross or the short pass or running in or crossing while he's in the box. So he's able to get.
Normally it's like that byline cutback kind of cross, like the Richie Larea kind of cross.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's something new. I don't remember seeing him doing that at New England, to be honest. So
no. So when he did that, I was just like, it actually, I'll be honest with you, it shocked me. From the time he kicked it and the time it hit Davies' head, I was just like, whoa. I had to look at the replay again. I was like, wow. So he really impressed me. Unimpressed me. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. I don't want to do this. So there's probably. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'll probably do this. I think there's 2 people. I think Borjan for sure unimpressed me because even his positioning, I think there were times even in the Croatia goal where he was like too far right and leaving the left open, or vice versa, too far left and leaving the right open. I think his positioning, and then once again, I'm not blaming him. It's hard I'll be honest with you, it's hard as a keeper. I think it's hard as a keeper to be able to do that, but and his passing out from the back, he didn't look as comfortable. And then the other person, I don't want to do this because he really had an outstanding game, but there was some blunders that he made. I don't know. I won't say unimpressed me. I'm probably more disappointed.
Not?
Pardon?
Do it. Why not?
Miller, like, come on, Miller. So it's not that he didn't necessarily unimpress me. There was just some
his passing impressed you, but everything else was questionable.
Yeah, and I don't want to knock because I know it's on there, and I know his cousin. There was one point where his cousin had tweeted out, and I know his cousin. So it's not that I want to knock him, but I think in when there was key moments, and I think that's what we haven't necessarily. And I think people have to be honest. I think that's why we haven't necessarily heard his name to be rumored to move. I think we heard it before. I think this World Cup has probably had people to be hesitant in regards to who actually, like, who's going to go abroad. I'm not sure he's going to. I mean, if he does, I want him to, but I'm not sure he definitely is going to go this transfer window because there were just some things that the turn still he's getting beat on the turn.
But I don't know if he can improve that. I think that's just his foot, unless they teach him a different way of running, or turning, it's his lack of foot speed and his agility on the turn. It's like him and Vittoria have the same pace over the first couple of meters. I know once he gets going, he has some speed, but to get going,
the initial,
on was it the Morocco second goal, the ball that was bent around him. Like, I understand that obviously Vittoria's man is the one that scored, but Kamal Miller as the pacier centre back, you'd hope he'd get there to intercept it. It was a very good ball, so maybe I'm just talking nonsense. It was bent right around him, and maybe there was a lack of communication where maybe Vittoria needed to shout to Miller to drop rather than look to be aggressive. But I agree. I think in the Belgium game, he made a lot of good tackles, last-ditch challenges. I believe it was that game. And his passing is excellent as a center back. That's something I do really appreciate about his game.
Yes.
But I don't know. I'll be honest, I was starting to get concerned about Kamal Miller in the game against LAFC in the semifinals, Eastern semifinals?
Yeah. Oh, he got shredded.
They were targeting him with balls over the top and around him a lot. And I'm like, this is a Canadian men's national team starting center back, and he's being targeted as the weakness. I started getting a little bit concerned there, and we just saw it from there onwards. I think he's come back to the pack with regards to Cornelius and Kennedy. I don't know. What do you think with that, Paul? Do you think Kennedy and Cornelius may are back to competing with them, where over the course of the World Cup qualifying, I think Miller already put himself apart from those two?
I think Cornelius, the issue is Herdman, right? Herdman, until he changes that, Herdman has, as Natasha said, loyalty with certain players.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what he's going to write, and I also get it too, right? You don't want to, what's the word? Not deflate, but you don't want to necessarily have somebody's confidence level necessarily drop because in an outfield they've been taken out. But I kind of have to agree. I don't know. I kind of rated Kennedy. So, I mean, I'm probably one of the few that hasn't necessarily rated Kennedy. Like, I rated Kennedy. Sorry.
Jordan in the chat.
Jordan is
trouble. He's causing trouble.
Yeah. But I personally think that seriously, that Kennedy, he has the length. You could see he had the speed.
Mm-hmm.
And he just needed more playing time. But with Kamal, that turn, we've seen that so many times. Even and just recently, the Japan game and the Morocco goal was kind of it just wasn't in the air, it was on the ground, but it was kind of like the same thing again. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, you could probably argue that Steven Victoria, so you could probably blame that. But if you understand that as a defender, you need to know, okay, you know what? Where likely it's going to go, because this has happened before. Mm-hmm. So where do I actually need to now run to or turn in order to be able, and if I don't have the speed, how am I able to get, because I mean, there's a lot of players in the world that don't necessarily have the speed, but they have the smarts. And maybe that's where Miller needs to, maybe that's as he starts to play more, maybe that might come where he doesn't necessarily the pace, but he knows how to be able to position himself better to ensure that those things will happen. But yeah, I don't want to say, I hate to say unimpressed, Chris, because as you said, yeah,
he had his weaknesses exposed. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and it was really exposed. Like a lot of the Canada team on a whole didn't play bad. Jonathan David, I know we were saying he didn't impress, but I think with him, he was making, and KJ was saying this, and I actually kind of saw it, but it's sometimes good to see live. He was making the right runs. Like he's good as a striker. I think he's probably one of the best to make the runs. Like I even see I watched a little game where he'll make the right run, and sometimes like Bomba will just be like, yo, pass the ball. Like he'll make the right run. So I think even with this team, it's just that because once again, we're lopsided and attacking heavy, we don't have the right players to be able to feed to Jonathan David's strengths, which is having a proper second striker, which I personally would have preferred Ike Ugbo, sorry. But we're riding Laren. And I've seen, this is Laren's second stint, and I've always not been I'll be honest with you, I haven't always been a big fan of him because of his hot and cold. Like when he's on, but when he's not, like Jonathan David, he's not on, but he's still trying to do the thing. So Laren, yeah,
He goes
people
for
might
a
say
walk in the park.
Yeah, Laren, people are like, oh no, but he defends. But I don't know, Natasha. Maybe you saw it live. Like no, did he play the Belgian? Did he?
He didn't play, but he did come on.
He did come. Did he come on in the Belgian game? I'm trying to remember. Did he come on in the second half? Yes, he did. He did.
Towards the end, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you would probably see a live to see, because on TV, like for me, Laren is just not making the right. People always say, well, he comes back and defends properly. I just don't see it. Yeah, maybe starting also.
Yeah, so Jordan, he said, do you think a midfield trio would have helped David? It depends. With David up top by himself, he needs the wingers when he drops deep or drift wide to take up his position, because that's one of his strengths, is dropping deep and drifting wide, and that's something that Lille does. Like Timothy Weah, for example, if Jonathan David is to drop deep, Timothy Weah will fill that space. So
right,
with the way Canada plays, you would need Tejan Buchanan and Alphonso Davies to take up those positions. But I think there is a way that you can still play two up top with the midfield three and the 3-5-2, which is a formation we did play in qualifying. I know many of us wanted the 4-3-3, but that's not a formation we've really ever played. But the 3-5-2 is one we've played, but we didn't go with it. We really were adamant with playing the two in midfield this entire World Cup for whatever reason. But how about you? Did any other players impress you or unimpress you by any chance?
Like what Paul said, I was very impressed by Tejan. When he was on the ball, you felt the confidence. It was oozing onto the field, right? It was like regardless of which player is marking him, he's like, I'm definitely going to take this player one-on-one, and I'm going to try to create impact from there, right? So I was very impressed by Tejan, because this is like his first major tournament for the national team, if I'm not mistaken, and it seemed like he belonged. So I was incredibly impressed there.
How about yourself, Robbie? You're mute, I think.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
No, I think Tejan was definitely stood out. I don't want to. I mean, we definitely covered a lot, and I wanted to say something a little maybe controversial, given the achievement that was that happened for him and Canada. But I don't think I was entirely impressed with Alphonso Davies, and I don't.
No, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say this. One, the only thing I'll point out, and I don't think it's worth really going too deep into it, is he tried to do too much.
Yeah.
At all times.
100%.
And like, I think if Canada is going to step up as a soccer nation, I think people like us, fans, other people who follow or comment on the game, let's be real, that penalty shot has to go in, and that's a huge error. That's a huge error. It wasn't even a good PK, like not even close. So regardless who took it, I know we've talked about it before on the show. I don't think he impressed, but I think it's mostly due to the fact that he wasn't given a role. I mean, how many different spots on the field did he play in? It's difficult to perform when you're being asked to constantly switch your mindset and approach. And then on top of it, he's carrying the weight of the country. And I think that's what, maybe drew him into doing more than he needed to. So I wasn't impressed. And I think it's more an indictment of how he was used than perhaps what he brought to the game, because the skill was there, the effort was there. There were a couple of moments where I thought maybe not, but nothing that stood out aside from the PK. So I think it's more about how Herdman used him, and maybe that's a good segue. I don't know where we're going. I forget where we're going next now, but Davies, do better. We still love you.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of the David Alaba for Austria, where we're taking away from what the player's strength is by asking them to do too much. Like Alphonso Davies' strength is getting up and down the left-hand side. And here we are asking him to be like a number 10 at times, and we're asking him to play on the right at times. Like, in my opinion, if we need somebody to move around the field, Tajon Buchanan should be that player, because I think he is more, I find he's more versatile than Alphonso Davies. Alphonso Davies is at his best either at left wing back or at left wing, and that's where he needs to play and utilize his strengths to benefit Canada, rather than sometimes he'll get the ball and then he'll drop deep and then he's trying to do too much. And then by the time he's done figuring out what he wants to do, the opposition has already set in their defense. And then by that time, it's too late. But yeah, the good transition, moving on to somebody who's been under the fire ever since Canada got eliminated from the World Cup, and that is John Herdman. So I want to go on a bit of a rant here, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people are tweeting out and saying on air that John Herdman needs to be fired. I've seen John Herdman needs to be fired. I've seen John Herdman is holding Canada back. I've seen John Herdman is not a good enough coach. Like, did these people watch World Cup qualifying? We went from having sleepless nights when we were playing Suriname and Haiti to making the World Cup. And that's all on, or mostly in my opinion, due to John Herdman building this team and making us successful on the field.
And stadium selection and cold weather. I'm sorry. We got to be real about that.
Stadium selection, but then that applies to Mexico, that applies to Haiti, that applies to Jamaica.
I'm like a fundamentalist. Like, if you're not playing on grass, I have a huge
we were
issue.
playing on a cow pitch in Jamaica that, like, I don't even know how it qualified as a pitch.
But you're not playing the game the way it's played at the World Cup. So while you are picking up victories and getting to the top of the group and qualifying, once you get to the World Cup, everything you did almost doesn't count.
But
we have to qualify for real. We have to play real football.
But it's not like anybody else in CONCACAF was doing that.
And look
the US played in a game that was sub-zero.
Yeah, no, but fundamentally, if Canada played more games in an environment, and I'm talking about the field and the way football is traditionally played, if they played more games like that, they would be better prepared for what they face at the World Cup.
But I think playing. No, go ahead. Sorry.
But where do we do that in January in Canada?
But I think. Pardon?
BMO's not operational in January.
It could be.
Perhaps
barely grow grass in July sometimes, let alone January.
Possible.
I think there's some technology that they could. I've heard of some technology. Now the only issue, Robbie, is that we've been playing as much as we're playing CONCACAF, so we're going abroad and playing in. I think maybe only Costa Rica's field is really good. We play Panama, Honduras, El Salvador, where their pitches are bad. So the thing is, if we're going there and we're not getting the highest level, then the only issue is that we have to come back and do something to our advantage. And I think that's where, unfortunately, so I agree with you, in a perfect world, and I saw somebody tweet this out too, in a perfect world, everybody should try to get their pitch levels up. But if one team is not doing it, then you have to try to find an advantage in order to qualify.
I disagree. I think I'd rather finish third in the Hex. And play more games in an environment that lets Canada play a system and style of play that replicates what they need to do at the World Cup, as opposed to doing this like CONCACAF trickery,
Nations League,
do hoppery, any like supercalifragilistic like that's what they're playing. They're not playing football. They are. I mean, they're playing football, but it's not the same, and you guys know that, right? From the cow pastures and like from what they did in Jamaica to Edmonton, like that is not.
But Robin,
like,
that's two. What? How many games did we play in Edmonton? One, and then we played
one in
even Hamilton. Like it's a great facility, but the game on turf is not the same as the game on grass. Period. It plays differently. The ball, it has a different feel.
Oh yeah, for sure. It has a different feel when I play on turf. Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. The way you are able to get your footing with your cleats. There's a lot of things you can't do or can do or vice versa. I just think that the best way to prepare for success is to replicate that environment. Kind of like what Juan was saying, in practice, you try to set up those moments so that you know what to do in transition. So the less Canada plays on a world-class surface, the less they're going to be prepared to perform the way they need to. And I think that's just like my logic. Now, they qualified, right? Like if you look at what happened, they got there. But ultimately, I think Canada's, and I put an asterisk.
We need to bring this back to John Herdman, though.
Well, it is John Herdman because he picks the stadiums, right? So one of John Herdman's goals was like, I'm going to get to the World Cup. I don't care how I get there. The problem is once you get there, all the tactics, the way they played, it's all different now.
I think it's interesting because you both of you guys are making good sets of points. I think that due to the weather we have here, I think Herdman decided to take advantage of that instead of like perhaps going to Vancouver and going to BC Place for the ideal situation, right? It's indoor.
But BC Place is turf though. So we really don't have a lot. The only grass that we have that is a good facility is
BMO.
BMO.
And I don't think it's available in January, if I'm being honest.
I think we have to think like what was the main purpose of us not performing well in the World Cup? And I think it's because of us not having a plan B. And since we were so comfortable in qualifying, yes, we were like, there were a lot of close games and we were going on a meteoric rise. I think, I don't want to say it's like, it was too cocky of Herdman to not play a little more defensive. But I think him being overconfident with the squad, just saying, okay, we'll press up high, we'll make sure we'll win the ball in the final third, and then we'll go from there. Instead of just playing more defensive, get a low block in, and then go counterattack them. Because we've seen Australia do that, and they almost beat Argentina the other day. So again, it's like, for me, it's pretty stupid for people to say Herdman out, right? But for me, I like seeing those kind of errors because now we see what you do with your back against the wall, right? What you're going to do next, Herdman, right?
100%.
So
it's fair to criticize. Like I 100% agree. Like there's also the people on the other end where you're saying you can't say anything bad about John Herdman. It's fair to criticize him. He clearly did make mistakes.
Oh, he screwed up.
Clearly there's things to learn. But to say he needs to go when he's brought us to a place we haven't been in 36 years. Yes, it may have been slightly disappointing, the World Cup, but even when the octagonal started, I was praying that Canada would finish fourth just so we would have a chance of getting in through the qualifier. And we ended up finishing first. As the Robbie said, yes, maybe we took advantage of certain elements, but I don't know. That's CONCACAF, in my opinion. What do you think, Natasha? Are you John Herdman in or are you John Herdman out?
Oh, absolutely in. I think what stands out about him for me is like, one, I would rather him be a little bit cocky, but just go and attack and have an exciting game instead of just kind of bunkering down and defending. But I also think like, and I was like preaching this to my English family when I stopped there for a few days on the way to Qatar. It's like Canada may not have the best players on paper, and our development system is hugely lacking compared to other countries. But I think he really did an amazing job of like making the team reach its potential. And I mean, I think the potential of the team just isn't high enough to compete at the World Cup yet and really go far. But I think he squeezed everything out of them possible at like an individual and team level. So I think for that reason, that's why he needs to stay. And again, he just like the players, he has to learn how to better compete at that level. But yeah, anyone calling for his head is just probably never watched anything except their games at the World Cup. And especially when you see how far he's taken this team, like how could you get rid of him now?
I'm also going to call out the people that are saying it's okay to forgive John Herdman for the mistakes he's made. Forgive, even though he's done so much for the program. But if he doesn't win the Gold Cup in 2023, he has to go. I think that's ridiculous too, because what happens if we lose to the United States in the semifinal? I personally think the United States are better than us. They have a better talent pool than us. It's just Greg Berhalter sometimes does some crazy things. But if we were to lose to the US, even Mexico, I think we are probably, even though Mexico is on the downslide, I think we're probably equal to them and behind the United States. So if we were to lose to one of them, like unless it's an embarrassing game, Like, I don't see why. Yes, our goal should be to win the Gold Cup, but that doesn't mean we have to win the Gold Cup. If we were to lose to the final, like I said, if we were to lose in the final 2-1 to the United States, I'd be proud about that. Even though I would be disappointed, I'd still be happy. How do you guys feel? Like, do we need to win something in 2023 for John Herdman to keep his job?
No, because the interesting thing is a lot of people are saying, okay, get rid of him. Who do you bring in? Number one, the CSA. What he's had to deal with the CSA. I think a lot of people are not looking at the issues that he's had to his back up against the wall. And
Carlo Ancelotti, he's gonna leave Real Madrid right now and come to coach Canada.
Number one, they're not even paying him. We spoke about in our last episode how much they're paying him, how much he's had to squeeze. If you actually saw some of the podcasts and some of the interviews that he's had, even in the UK, speaking about how he had to go door to door, knocking around for money. These are a lot of other things that he's had to deal with. So as much as we might have thought that his job has been rosy, outside of dealing with the team, he's also had to deal with the CSA, which everybody from player, even though I had a couple people trying to argue with me, no matter what, other players have said the CSA has to get their stuff together. And they haven't gotten together for years. So for me, just in that sense, is you have to give Herdman the opportunity to continue to grow if he wants to stay. Because the reality is, who's going to want to come and coach a team for even say $1 million? You know what I mean? Who's going to come from outside? Are we Zambrano? Like, guys, we have to be realistic, and that's why I agree with Natasha. Like, give him time. And once again, CONCACAF, Robbie, from a higher level, we have Victoria. Canadian guy, what's his name again? It's just slipping me. The president for CONCACAF.
Malgigliani or something like that.
Victor Monti.
Yeah.
Montiagli?
Yeah.
It doesn't come off the doesn't roll off the tongue.
Montigliani. I know.
Yeah. So I think it starts with him. So it's not even necessarily I don't think it's only the CSA or Herdman. I think that is, to be honest with you, that is definitely a CONCACAF where they have to look within themselves to say, hey, we didn't represent well. Thank you.
No, I don't think that's right either.
I don't think
it is. It is Montopoli. Yeah.
Is it Montopoli? Yes, it is Montopoli.
Yeah,
You're right.
We didn't represent well enough at CONCACAF. So now we have to look inward in regards to the infrastructure, how we're doing things. Because I don't think it's going to be fair. Because remember, the U.S. and Canada were getting bullied when they were going to Panama or going to the altitude playing in Mexico. Mexico, like, yeah, we have other stadiums, but we're going to have you playing at high altitude. Like, I think it's definitely, I think this World Cup cycle, I think Berhalter and Herdman got together and were like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to do them what they did to us. And I think it's more of that mentality. But I think in a sense, it also builds fortitude. So I understand what you're saying, Robbie, but it also builds a mindset of, you know what? We also have to we don't really play in these conditions, but we're also going to try to play in these conditions and see how well we do. So you could always
everything you're saying is right. I'm just, I'll say this. If you play hockey on fake ice and then go play it on real ice, it's a different game. And it's the same thing with soccer. It doesn't matter what you do. You guys are absolutely right. It's a strategy to win games, to throw your opponent off. It's very much worthy of praise for its effectiveness and the fact that they thought about it, because that's kind of what you want to do. It's the reason why you have your ultras at the game. You want the crowd loud. It's home field advantage. I'm a purist, so while I will happily disagree with you guys, but I think you make a good point and I understand it.
I agree. Sorry, what did you say, Juan?
Sorry, I was making a little comment. It's interesting because this is a wild conversation compared to what we had years ago, right? Like back in 2019, we didn't even think we'd be in the World Cup. Now we're having expectations of winning the Gold Cup. But now we're getting to a point where football is becoming a niche sport. So now we want to have it mainstream. In order for us to get it mainstream, we sort of need silverware. Right. Yeah. So from us to get from that one point to the next, what is the next steps? And I don't think anybody knows. It's very difficult, right? Because I think for that Croatia game, we had about like 4.4 million people tuning in. So
Yes.
like there was so much attraction to that, right? It's a high stakes game,
Peak
right?
of 6 million, I believe. But yeah.
Yeah.
Average 4 point something. Yeah.
And then the next match after, we dropped to 1.4. Again, it's still pretty high, but
Midweek 2 in the morning. But yes, it did
Yeah.
drop off.
yeah, with all those circumstances, I think it's interesting because now we're trying to think, okay, how can we get the sport into mainstream? How can we continue getting coverage on TSN, on CBC? And I think for us to do
We're
that,
not. It's all going to be on One Soccer, my friend.
Not
Hey.
TSN. I'll be honest. Sorry, Juan. I have to.
Go ahead,
for a
go ahead.
second. No, and sorry, I hate to do it, but TSN, to me, all due respect, but and it's funny because somebody else tweeted, they're like, wow, imagine that we're longing for One Soccer. TSN, and I'll call it out, like Kevin on what, like, I think there's something else with Stevie Caldwell getting dropped from as being one of the coaches.
Yeah, I think he's got some personal beef. There's some personal beef there.
And that Kevin is also taking, because Janine Becky, I think the women, they love him. So Janine Becky was like, yeah, he made a mistake, but he'll come back. He always does it. Kevin, like, oh, but look at the mistake. Like, they were pounding. And there's one thing to criticize, but you could tell it was it was oozing personal.
Caldwell, it was personal.
Yeah, it was personal for the studio. And I was like, you have to remove yourself. And I think there was points he was trying hard not to, but he couldn't hide it. Like, Guzman actually did well. He had a well balance. He was like, yeah, Herman make mistakes, but blah, blah, blah. But the CSA, he also said, but the CSA needs to do better. So you heard that balance. But Kevin and Stevie Caldwell, like both of them, I don't know. For me, they just rubbed me the wrong way, just with their takes and how personal it felt with the coaching. To me, it was just like, even KJ. KJ, as much as he criticized Herdman, he still came. But I don't know. TSN didn't really. You could tell, like, yeah, they know the game, but sort of coming together and actually delivering to the people, I wasn't impressed, to be honest with you. Like, I'm actually surprised to even say this. I thought One Soccer with their Qatar at night was much better than TSN's coverage. Yeah. Sorry, Juan. I have to get it off my chest.
Points.
Sorry.
Great
I have to
point.
get off my chest.
Do you have anything to add there, Juan? And then I want to touch on Jordan's question here, and we can just briefly talk about that, and then we can move on to the last segment.
Yeah, I'm very curious, Natasha. I know you're there for the Belgium and Canada game. And from over here, it felt very optimistic, right? We did lose the 3 points, but over here, everybody's seeing the potential for the Croatia match. And I'm curious how it was with the fans over there, and if you were able to watch TSN. Were you able to relate to the presenters when were they having those discussions, saying, "Yeah, I felt that way after the game"?
I haven't, like, I didn't see any of it while I was there. I honestly haven't even watched a replay of the game yet, which I've been meaning to. I think on the ground, it was just absolute optimism. I mean, we were like way louder than the Belgian fans and everything. Like, it was just, I think we felt it just like everyone else. It was just like, okay, we didn't get the goal, but we beat them in like every other sense of the match. And I mean, the day after, people are just in the streets like, oh my God, you guys were so good. You should have won. So yeah, I think from that fan perspective on the ground, I don't think anyone was really tuned into what TSN was saying. And I think it was just, we played our hearts out. The score didn't go as planned, but no one was getting too upset or in arms over it.
Yeah, I'm glad that TSN brought in Tosaint Ricketts and Janine Becky. They really, if they didn't bring in those two and we were stuck with the regular bunch, I would be a little bit concerned. Like today's games, they had Tosaint Ricketts and Janine Becky, just the two of them.
I want Janine on everyone.
I know it's too bad she's still playing. But like,
she's hard, man. I love her take. There's no nonsense. Just like boom, that's what it is. I really like that about her. So
Jordan, I actually liked her take. Yeah.
So Jordan, regarding this question, go back to the beginning, and we did ask Natasha a few questions regarding her experience. So once we're done, if you want to go back to the beginning, she's very insightful with her answers with regards to her experience about Qatar. But this question I wanted to touch on before we move on to the last topic is, are we going to be talking about the Terrible Davies article by the CBC? So I'll be honest, when I first saw the title of the article, I thought the article was going to talk about Alphonso Davies like hero ball and doing too much on the pitch. So I thought, okay, maybe like this might be a critical but a good article. It's maybe something I agree with. And then I opened the article and it just lost me because it had very little to do with on the pitch and lots of stuff to do off the pitch. And it just came across to me as jealousy and anger because Alphonso Davies wasn't going into what they call the mixed zones, where it's not just the broadcasters media, it's everybody, the entire media. And my only rebuttal to this is Alphonso Davies doesn't even do this with his club team. Like Manuel Veth was putting out there that even at Bayern Munich, the media doesn't even ask for Alphonso Davies anymore just because he doesn't like doing it. Maybe it's something he's not comfortable doing. And with him not being comfortable doing it, he promotes Canada soccer in so many other ways on his own platforms. And media isn't how it used to be. Like athletes aren't reliant on the media to portray their message to the public. Alphonso Davies could put out a tweet, a minute and a half video, and I'm sure more people would watch that than him doing a written article with somebody in the media, in my own personal opinion. Like, look at how Alphonso Davies, when he was on Twitch during the World Cup qualifying, when he was going through his heart condition, like people were watching that and they were learning about Canada soccer there, like people that weren't even Canada soccer fans. So I don't know about what you guys, if you guys want to touch on it briefly with regards to this article. I just think it was very offside because it had to do with things off the field, like him wearing earrings. Like, who cares if he wears earrings or not? Like, how is that me as a person reading this article, unless I have personal anger towards Davies, how is that providing me with any information that I need? Like, what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, man, it was so weird because like at first for me it seemed like which came first, the chicken or the egg, because now that I've seen the article, I'm like, I can see why guys don't want to go to the mixed zones, because like when you do it, like the guy can't go in there without getting his earrings roasted, you know what I mean? Like it didn't, there's nothing football related in terms of that article, right? No. And it was especially the first article where it sort of like went viral, right? And I don't know if it's because it was such a bad take, but nothing about it seemed tactical, and it was such a like perfect opportunity just to talk about the game and for people that are in that area, just to explain to people that don't watch the game a lot, to say what could have went right, what could have went wrong. It was just so weird of him.
I think it's a Canada soccer thing. I don't really. So maybe Davies. I don't think we can fully fault him, but I think he maybe some awareness that it was the first goal, and stopping there would have been nice to share something with everyone. Aside from, but this is my issue. He should have been at the table with Herdman. That's it, and that's a Canada soccer decision. Yeah, he should have been there so he could talk to the global community, right? At least the ones who were lucky enough to be in that press room. And then that would have been a moment where Canada could share that iconic moment, not just with, I think it was Kaylin Kyle and someone else, but, the rest of the world. That for me, I was like, why isn't he at that's like the official FIFA moment. And there's a milestone, not, in FIFA history, essentially, because Canada has never scored a goal on this stage in the men's game. So I'm not pulling a James Duffy here. So basically, I think the onus is on Soccer Canada. I think it's a player. Frankly, he has fulfilled his duty in the post game by doing those couple interviews with the two major outlets, one from Canada, and then I think Soccer Canada should have taken the opportunity to showcase that moment to the world, and they didn't. That's the part that bugs me. And I completely dislike all the journalists coming out and giving more than a half a sentence to it. I've read a lot of articles, and I would say 9 out of 10 spent a little too much time, dogging Davies for not giving them time. Like, he doesn't owe you anything at
No.
all. He has no obligation whatsoever. And you know what? Just talk about the game. And just deal with it that way. I don't think you can fault the player. I think that their mind is completely somewhere else. There should have been someone in PR. There should have been someone at Canada Soccer who would recognize the moment and then put him on the stage where he would have been seen the most. Yeah. And then everyone else can get their soundbite from that. If you didn't register like Kaylin Kyle and the other media outlet, too bad, so sad. That's what it's like at the World Cup. It's hard to get access.
Mm-hmm. I will say this: I think Canada Soccer made an emphasis of ensuring a variety of players were at the podium. I don't think we saw the same player twice with regards to sitting next to Herdman. It did rotate. So I think they went with the approach of not just having Alphonso Davies there, shining a light on all the players, especially the players that are comfortable dealing with the media, but they should have adjusted. I do agree there. They should have adjusted, but I also do like their plan of, instead of just having Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David there every day, they did rotate, which I understand that. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I do agree. I think it's more a CSA issue, but I also feel like I think the CSA they're trying to shelter him, right? So if he's not comfortable doing it, I think it's a matter of, you know what, we don't want to put him in he's already doing all these other things. We don't want to put him in an uncomfortable situation for him to fumble. Because you do see some players, and I think some people are tweeting, like, you don't want the same typical answers. Oh, yeah, we played well, and
which he does do when he's in the media scrums. He just mumbles out a generic answer. It's not. He's not an Alistair Johnston or a Jonathan Osorio who will give you insightful, in-depth answers. He's not like that.
Like Jonathan Osorio, like when you hear him speak, like break down the game. Like after the Croatia game, how he broke down the game, like what they didn't do right. Also to even Stephanie Eustakio, when you hear him speak, or of course Atiba, right? And I'm not dogging the other people, but we understand sometimes, and you know this, Robbie, sometimes the best player is not always, number one, the leader, and two, not the one that you want necessarily speaking.
100%.
And I think he will grow. He's young. We have to remember, he's what, 22, 21, 22? He'll grow. I think eventually he'll get comfortable. It's just, to be honest with you, if you're not comfortable, it's a lot. Like even for us doing this here, all of us coming together, it's not easy to now have the conversation as much as a group of us to now broadcast this on YouTube to the world. So imagine for these young kids who are coming up and they're playing soccer, then now you have all these media guys asking them questions, and maybe they're not sure how they're going to ask them. Like, are you asking me a trick question? But I think they were talking about, there was another time they questioned them. I think something that he spoke about, he thought Harry Maguire should be Maguire. Right. It should be Ronaldo should be the captain instead of Harry Maguire. And it was something just in casual, right? And then people took that and run with that. So sometimes even these players are like, oh my gosh, am I going to say the wrong thing? So I think that article was really trashy.
John Herdman.
Yeah, I think that article was trashy. Like stick, and I hate to say this, but what happened at the World Cup is, and especially the exposure, you had a lot of other reporters from other sports that were coming to the arena, and they were just looking at it from one view and was just like, you know what, we don't like this, so we're just going to go off. Like, sometimes you do more harm than good. And I think he was even trying to double down. Oh,
he tripled down.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't double down. He tripled down. He doubled down the same day, and then the next day he tripled down.
And I'm like, dude, like, just lay off. Because
calling the fans clowns and stuff, it's like, okay.
That's not going to want to make them talk to you anymore. No, like, you're just making it worse.
And to be honest, a lot of people like the issue is, which he needs to realize, a lot of people like Davies, because there's a lot of good that he does. Number one, the money is his earnings. He's giving back to charity. Like, there's things that he's doing that more fans are going to like him than not. So you just lay off, man. Like, it wasn't a good look at all. And just really trashy, to be honest, in my view.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Well, we can move on to the final segment. Okay, let's move on to the final segment. So the final segment is we're going to do a little bit of a predictor with the knockout stage of the World Cup, and we'll see who we have winning the World Cup. We did skip some stuff today, but I think the Canadian men's national team content is coming to an end, and maybe next podcast we can go more in depth with regards to the World Cup. But I did want to do this today. So obviously the Netherlands beat the US, Argentina beat Australia, France beat Poland. Yes, they did beat Poland. So let's predict the rest of the games. So I'm going to come to Natasha. I'm going to come to you first. Who's going to win between Japan and Croatia?
I'm going to say Japan.
Okay.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm all about the chaos.
Okay.
No, that's
How about yourself, Paul?
yeah. I'm gonna say Japan.
Japan? Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying Japan.
To Japan. How about yourself, Juan?
I'm gonna have to go Croatia.
Croatia?
Yeah.
Robbie?
Croatia.
I'm going
shock.
Croatia. I am Croatia too. So
Yeah.
we're gonna go Croatia, but you know what, Japan, they impressed me.
Yeah, they did.
Except in the Costa Rica game. Like Costa Rica was not that great. And that, to be honest, Costa Rica is an example of why parking the bus isn't really a good idea, because look what happened to them against Spain. They just got ripped apart by parking the bus, but they somehow got a result against Japan. Natasha, who's going to win, Brazil or Korea?
Go Brazil.
Brazil. Paul?
Brazil.
Juan?
This might be a sweep, Brazil.
Robbie?
Korea.
Ooh, there you go.
Okay, I'm going Brazil. So 4-1 Brazil wins. But South Korea represent.
I'm last. I might be just the chaos by de facto.
I'm lost, actually.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Natasha, who's going to win, Morocco or Spain?
Spain.
Paul?
Morocco.
Oh, Juan?
I'm agreeing, Morocco.
Oh, Robbie?
Yeah, Morocco.
Oof.
I'm going to say Spain, but the Morocco won. Interesting.
Yeah, they've been impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Spain's young. The thing is, Spain, yeah, they have some veterans, but they're young. Their starting 11 is young. Morocco, yeah, man, they love that coach right now. They're gonna play everything. They have something to. Morocco has something to prove because they want to prove to the previous coach that it was his issue and it wasn't the players.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do everything in their power.
And one might not think of it, but Morocco and Spain is quite the little rivalry. The
They are,
two
yeah.
countries very close to each other. They have a lot of history. There's a lot of Spanish cities that are, well, I say in Morocco, but like Spanish cities that are in Africa that are right next to Morocco, which don't really make a lot of sense. They should be Morocco, but technically they're Spain. So a lot of history between these two countries. Natasha, Portugal or Switzerland?
Portugal.
Paul?
Go.
Juan?
I don't know why, but this game for me feels like penalty kicks all over it.
Yeah. Especially if Ronaldo starts.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go Portugal by penalties.
Okay. Robbie?
Yeah, it's a coin toss.
It is.
Yeah, I'll give it to Portugal.
I'm going to give it to Portugal too, so that's a sweep. But like I said, depends. Is Ronaldo going to give Switzerland any assists like he did in the last game with his back? Okay, moving on to the quarterfinals. Natasha, your Netherlands versus Argentina, which is going to be a good matchup, in my opinion. Who's going to win?
I'm Dutch, so I got to go for Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay. Paul?
Netherlands.
Juan?
I'm at to go Netherlands as well.
Oh, Robbie?
Well, I don't know. Does it matter now?
Yeah, well, not really, but at least get your thought out there.
Yeah, I think Argentina might be it for them too.
Yeah, I find this one so hard to predict. I'm gonna say Argentina because Messi pulls a masterclass, but Netherlands wins 3-2.
Just how many times do they have to rely on Messi? I don't like that. It seems like they always have to rely on him to do something.
They always have that one striker that decides to miss glorious opportunities in big tournaments, like Lautaro Martinez decided to replace Gonzalo Higuain as the one to miss all the opportunities. Like the one against Australia, he had like 4 chances. One was an open net. He just had to pass it into the back of the net and he shot it to the moon. Like, oh my goodness. Classic Higuain. And there were some good memes of people like Messi was pulling off the mask of Martinez, and it was Gonzalo Higuain underneath.
Like a Scooby-Doo meme?
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo memes. Yeah, it was good. Natasha, Croatia or Brazil?
I haven't actually watched Brazil play yet, but I'm going to say them just because I don't like Croatia anymore.
Okay. Paul?
Brazil. Like even though they have a lot of injuries, with Chichi, they've been playing a certain system. They'll be fine.
Juan?
I'm gonna go Brazil as well.
Robbie?
Croatia.
I
I really want to say Brazil. I'm just like mixing it up now.
I'm going Brazil too. So 4-1, Brazil wins. Another little tasty matchup between two countries with a lot of history. England versus France. Natasha, who do you have winning this game?
Oh.
Yeah.
My family might kill me for this, but I think France.
Okay.
France, man.
Paul, France?
France. I hate England, but France, same thing like Brazil. They have injuries, but right now, the way they're playing.
Yeah.
I want England to win, but I think France is going to win.
Okay. Juan, how about yourself?
I can picture Mbappe just grabbing a brace against like Maguire.
Running past Maguire.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have France too. Robbie?
Honestly, with the Mbappe show and what's his face? He's on Milan now. For the life of me, I can't think of it.
Giroud?
Yeah. Like, oh man,
highest men's French scorer in history now.
Yeah, I don't know. France looks good all of a sudden.
They do.
I didn't rate them, and now they're doing what all these giants do in tournaments. They just slowly grow and turn into like a power.
Yeah. So who do you have here? You have France, right? I'm gonna go France too. So there we go. And then Morocco versus Portugal. Natasha.
I'll go Portugal.
How about yourself, Robbie? I mean, Paul.
Morocco. Dark horse.
Oh, okay. Juan.
I got a chaos. Got some chaos.
Yeah, this feels like a 2002 World Cup, whereas the underdog in the semis. I'm gonna go with Morocco.
Okay. How about yourself, Robbie?
Yeah, I think Morocco's a good pick. It'd be nice, and I'm foreseeing an African nation in the semis.
It's interesting. Morocco going up against Spain and then Portugal. That's like two countries that they have a lot of history with. That's interesting. But yeah, I would go Portugal, but Morocco wins 3-2. So then we go to the semifinals. We got Netherlands versus Brazil and France against Morocco. So Netherlands versus Brazil. I'm gonna come to you, Natasha.
I'll go Netherlands.
Okay. Paul.
Brazil.
Juan.
It's gonna be close, but Brazil.
Robbie.
I'm gonna side with the female on the crew tonight. Netherlands.
Netherlands.
It's up to you, Chris. It's up to you.
To me, I have a certain team winning it, so I'm gonna have to pick them, and I'm gonna pick Brazil winning this one.
Oh, you betrayed our guest.
No, I'm sorry.
Hey,
The next up, we got France versus Morocco. That would be a nice, interesting matchup. But although
they all speak the same language.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah.
So Natasha, who's winning? France versus Morocco.
France.
Paul.
France.
Juan.
Yeah, this is where Morocco's run ends. France. Yeah.
Robbie.
I bet 3 croissants on France.
And I'm going France too. Okay, so comes to the third place game. We've got Netherlands versus Morocco. I think we know who Natasha's going to pick, but I'll ask her. Natasha, you're taking Netherlands, I assume.
Gotta go Netherlands.
Okay. Paul?
Netherlands. I usually look, Netherlands.
Juan?
Yep, Netherlands as well.
Robbie?
Penalty kicks.
Yep, Netherlands.
I'm going to go Netherlands as well. I don't think many people had Netherlands coming this far, nor Morocco, but that's a good World Cup by the two of them, in my opinion. And then we have the final, Brazil versus France. Brazil was definitely one of the favorites going into the tournament. France was too until their injuries in midfield, and then people started to write them off. But they've showed they've got the depth in midfield that even with Kanté injured and Paul Pogba injured, They got Rabiot starting and Tchouaméni.
And Griezmann,
And
is playing
Griezmann,
that,
dropping D.
he dropped to that. Yeah, he's looking good.
Griezmann has turned himself into Wayne Rooney, playing all over the place, playing on the wing sometimes, playing striker sometimes, and not playing midfield sometimes. But Natasha, in this epic final, who do you have winning? Brazil versus France?
I think I'm going to go France.
France. Paul?
Imagine this Neymar versus Mbappe.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Brazil.
Juan?
I can picture the headlines. Neymar's first World Cup, their golden boy versus Mbappe. If he wins 2 World Cups by the under age 25, arguably one of the greatest players of all time. So I'm going with France.
Robbie?
You know what? I had Brazil, but I think France might do it.
Yeah.
If they keep up what they're doing. They've been getting better so nicely. So I'm jumping on that bandwagon.
Robbie, my stuff just glitched, so I missed your answer.
France.
France? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going with Brazil. I predicted them to win the World Cup at the start, but I'm losing this bet. So France wins 3-2, and there we go. This is going to load, and I'll tweet this out at the end once we're done. There we got France winning the World Cup over there. Brazil, the sole losers over there.
We're going to need a disclaimer when you post that, just saying, like, these are our opinions. Please do not place any money and blame us.
I know, eh?
Bet all your money on the following results.
Yeah. Hey, I decided to put $400 on Morocco. What happened, man?
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for us. So let's move on to the outro of this evening. Let me move to this one. There we go. So that concludes our podcast for this evening. I want to thank everybody for listening in, and thank you for joining us on Canadian Footy Fan Channel, content for fans by fans. I want to thank my excellent co-hosts, Robbie, Paul, and Juan this evening, and a very special shout out to Natasha for joining us. I really enjoyed her perspective of things and her sharing of her experience at the Qatar World Cup. It is greatly appreciated, and hopefully we can get Natasha on again in the future if she so desires, and enjoyed her time with us here tonight, and we didn't scare her off. A reminder that everybody's social links are in the description below, everybody's Twitter links, as well as Juan's Twitch link. Juan, are you planning on streaming anytime soon?
I'm going to bed, man.
Well, not today, but in the coming week.
Tuesday.
Okay, yeah. I'll be there. I'll be
you,
there.
Man.
Everybody listening, make sure you follow Juan's Twitch, and you're there on Tuesday as well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and give your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I have been your host, Chris, signing out.